one of the fantastic tools for creating mental strength is to look at what the stories we're telling ourselves are about what's going on. At work, in our personal lives, anywhere. We are creating stories. And we are creating stories in such a way that we've come to know this as the drama hook. Now, the drama hook is when we create stories either from our child state or from our parent state, or even just from what we're seeing in front of us, we're creating stories. And we're giving the stories meaning that maybe wasn't there in the first place. So let me introduce you to the drama hook. Now, on the one side, we have the stories that we're telling ourselves. We have the drama hook. Something happens in our office and we already automatically ascribe some meaning to it. In other words, we take a bit of information here and a bit of information here and we string it together with meaning. But that meaning doesn't necessarily have to be correct. In fact, our minds need that story to be complete, so we'll fill that puzzle in any way we can. That's called the drama hook, and we buy into those stories. But the way to look at any situation is to say, okay, what's the problem that is? So on the left-hand side, we've got the drama hook, the story, what we're telling ourselves. On the right-hand side, the resourceful way to look at this is to say, well, what's the problem that is going on here? The problem beneath it. So in business coaching, someone might say to me, hey, look, my cash flow is really poor and we can't afford to do this and we need to buy more equipment, but we can't afford to get a loan to do this. Well, that's a story. That's the drama hook. What's the problem that is? And when you explore what the problem is underneath it, you might find that their record keeping is not very good, or they're not chasing up overdue debtors and so their cash flow is not good, or they're selling a product that's no longer required by the market. They need to change their business model. When we look at what the story or the drama is, and then we start to examine what the problem that is underneath it, now we're really starting to be able to have that mental strength to say, okay, here's the story, but what's really going on? Because then we can get a completely different outcome. Let me show you an example. So if we take something really simple that we've all struggled with, which is delegation, right? What's the story that we tell ourselves about delegation? Oh, I have no time to train my staff, or they make so many mistakes, I just don't trust them. Or people just aren't skilled enough to do the things that I want them to do. Or the worst of all, if you want something done right, you've got to do it yourself. They are all stories that we are telling ourselves, and they are stories that are usually full of emotion or full of automatic responses. So if we think about our three ego states, they are stories that are either coming from our parent state or our child state. So if we're going to get into adult state, what we're going to do is ask ourselves, what's the problem that is? Rather than look at the story, let's start looking at the problem that is underneath it. Now, what could that problem be when it comes to delegation? Well, it could be a lot of things. It could be that we need to learn to master delegation, or we need better leadership skills, or we need to communicate differently, or we need to match skills of our team to the tasks that we're asking them to do. Delegation could be any number of those things. Now, you can apply this to your own life. You know, if you're having a bit of a misunderstanding with your partner, you will be creating a story around that. And I heard this wonderful story of this husband and wife who were swimming across a lake, and she was sort of trying to have a conversation with him, and he was kind of blowing her off a little bit. And she was like, oh, hang on, why are you being so mean to me? You know, don't you think I look good in my Speedo anymore? Don't you like me anymore? These are all the stories that are going on in her head. When she actually said, look, the stories that are going on in my head are this, he actually said, well, actually, Dale, I had a nightmare last night that a speedboat came around the corner and killed one of us, and I'm freaking out at the moment. So, it's got nothing to do with you. I'm just really managing my own stuff. The problem was that he was having a lot of stress about a bad dream he had, but the story she was making up was that he doesn't find me attractive anymore. So this is a really interesting way to look at these things, because when we look at the story, what we're doing is we're basing that on emotion and automatic behaviors, when what we really want to do is look at the facts and the data. We want to take the judgment out of the story and start being curious about what the root problem is to get a completely different outcome or to move forward with a problem and resolve it.